Okay, so welcome to the Research Capacity Development Unit at the University of Johannesburg Postgraduate School. My name is Kokezo Bila and I will be your moderator today. Please allow me to start off by thanking all our attendees for taking a time to join us. And most importantly, I would like to thank our presenter, Dr. Kenny Chiwarawara, for his effort with preparing and giving this presentation. Before I officially introduce Dr. Kenny to you, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules and some important information. So for the housekeeping rules, if you do have questions during the presentation, please raise your hand if you would like to speak, or you can type your question in the chat box and I will then indicate to the presenter to address your question. And as I've stated, this session will be recorded and the recording link will be uploaded on the Moodle community together with the slides. And also a feedback survey will be sent out during the session. Maybe please ask that you fill the survey out for us to get some insight on whether this workshop was useful or not and how we can improve in the future. So without wasting any more time, please allow me to introduce our presenter, Dr. Kenny Chiwarawara, by reading out his bio. So Dr. Kenny Chiwarawara is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Johannesburg. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience in giving detailed oral and written feedback. He has worked as a writing consultant at 3 different universities for over 10 years. He consults with students across all faculties and schools, on-site, and online consultation. Dr. Chiwarawara also works in the RCD unit as a writing consultant. So without wasting any more time, I will hand over to Dr. Kenny.
Thank you very much, Koketso, for that kind introduction. I'll just put my video now so that you can see who is talking, but I will switch it off as soon as I start presenting. But thank you so much to everyone for coming, and thank you to the RCD for organizing this this workshop. And I would like to start by saying that this workshop is one of many that are offered by the postgraduate school. And so in this series, we are talking about steps to writing the research proposal. And then yesterday we talked about an overview of the research proposal itself. And so today I turn to the discussion of topic research questions and paragraph development. Okay, so can you just give me an indication whether you can see my my presentation? Anyone,
yes,
please?
Dr. Kenny, we can see.
Awesome, thank you so much. May I also say that at any time, feel free to jump in if you want to ask any question. I don't really make it super formal. I prefer to make it informal, and so feel free at any time to jump in if you want to ask any questions, you want to make a contribution, or you have something pressing that you want to say. Feel very free to do so. So today we are talking then, so as I said yesterday, we talked about an overview of a research proposal. Then today we move on to the different aspects of writing your research proposal. That entails writing, coming up with a topic and a title, and then developing research questions, and then also the writing part in terms of the paragraph development itself. And then tomorrow you will have another presenter, Professor Dutoit, talking about a research methodology, talking about qualitative and quantitative methodology. And after that, you have a series of other presenters who will talk on different aspects of your proposal. So in terms of the outline, I've already said topic selection, research questions, and I'll spend a bit of time talking about paragraph development because I know that this session is about steps to writing your research proposal, and I am confident. Maybe it's just being overly hopeful, but I'm confident that what you learn today will be helpful as you develop your dissertation if you're a master's student or your thesis as a PhD student. And as I said yesterday, it's important for you to begin to think of yourself as a scholar, not just a student. You're a scholar engaged in a conversation. And so there's a way to write, there's a way to go about this whole process. So in terms of the topic selection, the topic itself, I would say that articulating an appropriate and interesting research topic is perhaps the most demanding and difficult part of your proposal development, or just arguably the most difficult and demanding task that you would do. It takes time to get a clear topic that you are going to settle on. And it requires a lot of reading and refining. So you will see that the first topic that you come up with may not be the final topic that you end up submitting to your supervisor or for examination that you then carry out throughout. But it's not a waste of time. The reading that you do refines your thinking about the particular topic or issue that you want to investigate. So it takes time to get a clear topic, requires a lot of reading, requires a lot of refining. And that issue around getting focus or having focus is quite important because you need to have clarity on what you want to write about, so that when you are writing, you have direction in terms of where you are going and where you are not going. And I think when we talk again later about your research questions, again, that talks to that as well in terms of where exactly what is it that you want to understand? What is it that you do not want to understand? What are the things that you have to include in this study, but what are the things that you have to exclude? In the same way, your topic demarcate where you are focusing and what you are not focusing on. I talk about these things, but I'm mindful that writing a proposal is not usually a linear process. It often does not follow a step-by-step approach. It's often a process which goes forward, you go back. Sometimes the inquiry doesn't work out, as you are developing and you realize, well, this is really a dead end. There is nothing I can really pursue here, and I need to stop and I need to think about a different one. But as I said, it's part of the process. It's a spiral kind of process. You go forward, you go back, you pause, you get confused. Allow yourself to go through that whole process. And sometimes when you're working with a prospective supervisor, you get even frustrated because they say, go back and work, go back and refine this. And it's part of it. We all go through that whole process. So be a bit patient with yourself. Keep on reading, keep on refining. Have a look at what others have done in terms of their topics, in terms of their titles. I've said that this is, getting a topic is not often a linear or getting a topic and even writing a proposal is not often a linear process. Of course, that does not mean that you should not plan and try to get into a systematic way of writing, but just to be mindful that you may go forward, you may go back and refine this, and it's part of the whole process. It's a process of continual refinement and refocusing what you are writing. So how do you decide on a topic? Well, you do so by first identifying something that's interesting and appropriate theme. And I'm saying appropriate theme because you are in a particular department, you're in a particular faculty. And so if you are in the Department of Sociology, for example, they are concerned about sociological investigation. If you are in the Department of Communication, there has to be something that you are researching that falls within that department. Otherwise, if the focus is not there, they will say, well, what you are doing is interesting, but it doesn't quite fall within the ambit of what we research here. So it's quite important for you to know whether this is appropriate in the department where you are. And then, of course, it's important to ask yourself, why does this research area interest me? Why is it relevant to investigate? Um, I touched on these things yesterday as well, so you're welcome to check the recording from yesterday to get information on this. So you first get a broad theme, a broad area of study. Is it trade? Is it housing? What is it? The broad issue? Is it inequality? Something very broad. But then within that, you now narrow down to a particular topic in that theme. If it's housing, what aspects of this housing theme do you want to focus on? So you ask yourself, what specific issue within the broad theme do you want to investigate? And why do you want to investigate that particular issue within that broad theme? And of course, you then focus on a problem within that topic. And we talked about this as well in trying to address a problem, a gap in literature. We said that if what you want to research is a straightforward issue and everyone agrees on it, then perhaps there is no need for an investigation. An investigation is meant for us to understand something that we don't quite fully understand. That's why we are saying maybe there's a gap in literature, or there's a puzzle that hasn't really been resolved, or there's an ambiguity, a tension that your research seeks to address and to settle, for example. And then, of course, where can you find a theme? You find it in your coursework. And I think I made this point as well yesterday, that you come to do your master's and to do your PhD with a lot of information already. You did your undergraduate degree, you did your honors degree. So you are a scholar in your own right, and you are still developing as a scholar. And all of us are scholars, and we are still developing. So think about your coursework. What theme was interesting to you there? Then within that theme, what issue really, is something that you'd want to pursue? This is quite important because your master's and your PhD, your master's degree takes some time to complete, maybe 1 year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. Then your PhD between 3 years to 5 years, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6, 7 sometimes. And so you want something that is interesting to you, something that will intrigue you, something that will make you wake up in the morning and you want to do it. Some days will be better than others, but at least it's something that you want to investigate. It can also be an existing research project. Sometimes supervisors are already working on a particular issue and they want master students to work on that issue, and or a PhD student to work, and it can be plugged into that. There are advantages to that, but there are also disadvantages to that. But just this is where you can sometimes get your topic already. And then sometimes from your personal experience, you sometimes have seen certain things, you have observed certain things, and you want to investigate that thing in a more systematic and scientific way. Now, in terms of this topic that you now have, you have to come up with a title that captures the essence of what you are writing on. And your title will undergo numerous revisions. And I want to really emphasize that, because writing is really a process. It's not a once-off thing that you get it right and that's it, you're done. It's not often like that. It's often a refining kind of process that you're engaged in. Your title, this is quite important, should clearly and succinctly convey the topic that you are researching. So by looking at your title, we should get a clear sense of the topic that you are investigating. So this is quite important to bear in mind. But also keep in mind that your title should be brief and should provide a good idea about the focus of your thesis or of your dissertation. Avoid overly and unnecessarily long titles and lengthy titles, which may really be confusing to the the reader. I remember I submitted one title for one book chapter, and one of the reviewers said, "This is quite interesting, but I think you want to break down this title a little bit so that you sharpen it, so that it's not too lengthy and really crowded." And it was really crowded. I had put up some big names, big words there that I felt still captured the essence of what I was talking about. But I think it has to be simple, straightforward, and be able to capture. Remember, the title is what people look at when they are deciding to read your document. Now, if you turn to the if you turn it into an article or a book chapter or anything of that nature. So you have a theme. Within the theme, you now have a topic, and within that topic, you're focused now on a problem. So the identified topic within the broader theme must now focus on a particular problem, the ambiguity, the tension, the unresolved issue that you seek to resolve in your study or to find out in your study. So the thesis then from this moment on is seized or is tasked with resolving or answering that particular problem. So it's important for you to do a lot of reading in order to get to this particular point. It then helps to formulate your problem as a problem question. You have the problem that you found. You may want to think about framing it as a problem, as a question rather, because if you frame it as a question, it forces you to answer that question throughout your investigation, because you have a particular question or a set of questions that you're asking that you then want to answer throughout your investigation. And I am using that word investigation, and as I say so, I hope you have in your mind this picture around, maybe there was a crime that was committed some years back, and the perpetrator hasn't been found, and it's not quite clear who did that. And there is this individuals who are responsible for finding out more about this. So it's an investigation that is ongoing. So it helps to have questions that you seek that you want answers to. And so think about that as well when we are talking about this particular issue around research questions. And so in terms of your research questions, you will see that today we are talking about topic and research questions, and then we turn to paragraph development. There is no mention of aims and objectives, but I just wanted to bring them there as well, because they're closely related. So you have an aim that you have, which is a bit broad in terms of why you are conducting this study. What is it that you really want to achieve? And then often you have a number of objectives that once you address these objectives, they help you get to the broad aim that you have. And so often these are the words that you see then to explore, to investigate, to analyze, determine, to assess these kinds of objectives. Now, in some cases, you may have and you know this already, and this is almost a reminder for many of you, maybe all of you actually, that the main research question is just an aim that is flipped into a question. And then, of course, you then have the sub-research questions where answering these sub-research questions help you answer the main research question. And of course, these are issues around what you want to investigate, whatever, how, whatever, why certain things are happening. You might have 3, you might have 4, it depends. And for those into quantitative, this is where you have a hypothesis. I don't talk about that right here, because you will have a discussion tomorrow that deals with research methodology, qualitative, quantitative methodology, and I think you will touch on these different aspects as well. Any questions so far? And I do know I'll give you a time for questions later, but I just wanted to get a sense from you whether you had any pressing questions right now. Okay, so I won't be able to see the questions, but if there are any questions, feel free to let me know. Maybe as I round up this section, it says here, what you need to know is that what we include or exclude and how tightly we focus on what we are interested in are encapsulated in the wording of your question or your questions. And your proposal and dissertations, research reports in the humanities often want you to list these research questions that you are going to then throughout ensure that you answer these. That's why you will see that when you go to your literature review, you will have to be working again with your research questions because you want to know what is known already from other studies on this and what is not known already. And when you come to the discussion, you'll be engaging with the literature. So really, your research questions are very crucial and they're very key, and it's important for you to take time crafting these research questions. I turn now, if there are no questions on this, I turn now to paragraph development. And I will spend a bit of time on this because that's where often, remember, we're talking about steps to writing the research proposal. So we are really focusing in this series on the writing of the research proposal. And as you write, you know that you present your work in paragraphs. And so at the end of this discussion, I do hope that around the paragraphs that you'll be able to identify the elements of a paragraph, or at least you'll be reminded of the elements of a paragraph. At the postgraduate school, we are mindful that some of you perhaps did your honors maybe some years ago, 5 years ago, and maybe you just need a refresher in terms of these things. That's why these workshops are there to refresh your memory or to inform you if you're not quite sure about certain things. And some of you finished your master's a long time ago, 5 years ago, and now you are coming back to do your PhD. And so it's important for us to remind you of these things. As you heard in the introduction, I'm one of the consultants, and so sometimes we meet students or PhD students, and they openly tell us, "Look, I last did this a long time ago. I finished my master's in 2010 or in 2012, and I haven't been writing academic material, paragraphs, since then." And so it's almost like with these things, it's practice makes perfect. If you don't do it, you kind of lose it a little bit, and once you get back into it, it's like exercising. The more you do it, the more you become better at it. So you do need to keep on reading, keep on writing academic material for you to keep on developing. So I do hope that at the end of this segment, you will know how to craft a good paragraph. You will know how to provide a logical flow to your paragraphs. I think I'll try to touch on that as well. As you know, any piece of writing in academics is often, in academia rather, I should say, is often made up of, a piece of writing is often made up of an introduction, the main text, which is often called the body, made up of a number of paragraphs, and then, of course, a conclusion. But before you get to that, you do need to have what is called a task analysis, where you dissect what you are supposed to do. What is the task that you should do? You're thinking about what is required of you, what is the subject word in terms of what exactly should you write on, what should you not write on, what is the task limiting you to do. And for example, if you are developing your proposal, you will see that sometimes you have a page limit. And so in the task analysis, you're thinking about a section, say you're writing on the research methodology. If it's saying that you need only 2 paragraphs, though you might have 5 pages, you want to then condense it to 2 paragraphs. That's part of the task. And what exactly am I writing about? What should I write about? Then there's an introduction where you contextualize what you're trying to do. You make sense of it to the reader, the context within which you are writing, and you define key terms that should be defined. And of course, you provide the structure of how the work is to be organized. And then you then move on to the main text, which is often called the body, made up of several paragraphs. And so today I'm talking about paragraph development. And then, of course, often you have a conclusion, but I won't touch on this today. You will have another segment that deals with abstract and conclusions in future. So, what's your understanding of a paragraph? I really wish one or two people would say something, but sometimes people don't want to say, or sometimes they're in a place where they can't speak up. You're also welcome to type in the chat box if you want to put down something. What comes to mind when you hear of a paragraph? Now, I do know that you all know what a paragraph is, and I'll just refresh your memory around this. And so all paragraphs have a basic structure. It's important to bear that in mind, that there's a structure that you follow. No matter what you're writing on, you often have a structure that you follow. And there are also rules that you should follow or that you should be mindful of when you're constructing your paragraphs. Now, these rules go, whether you are whether you're writing a letter, an essay, a master's proposal, a master's dissertation, a PhD proposal, a PhD thesis. There is a particular structure, or there are rules to writing, and we are going to talk about them. So in terms of the structure of a paragraph, I'll just go through what I have here. As a paragraph is in the main body of your assignment, or in this case, your assignment is the proposal. Paragraphs usually contain a number of sentences, but what distinguishes these sentences from these other sentences? Well, the sentences in a paragraph they can either develop new ideas or expand on existing ideas that have been talked about. So when you are writing, you have a number of paragraphs. Now, paragraph A may be developing a new idea, but paragraph B might be expanding on the idea that has been said, or it's the same thing really, but it's now too long, and you want to continue this thought or this idea in the next segment. So, and then of course, sometimes you may also need to construct paragraphs which offer contrasting views on the ideas you've already mentioned. So maybe in paragraph B, you've talked about the advantages of something, but in paragraph C, you want now to offer contrasting views to that. You are now providing maybe disadvantages to this, that though you have said that there are advantages to this, there are also disadvantages, and you can decide to do so in a different paragraph. Now, a succession of well-constructed paragraphs they often help to create a coherent or well-reasoned and structured argument. Remember, when you're writing, you are telling a story. Now, the person who is reading is following your story. So there are different moves you make. And if you are not careful, it will be difficult for me who is following you to see where you have gone. That's why, when someone is speaking, sometimes they say, are you still with me? Because it's possible for me to lose you, maybe because of the way I'm going about it, the way I'm speaking, maybe too fast or too slow, and now maybe you're sleeping. But the same goes with the writing. if the different paragraphs are not well structured, the reader might actually lose interest. They might not see what you are saying and where you are going with it, because now everything is mixed up and there is no particular flow to what you are saying. And of course, it's important to also mention that a paragraph should not be too long or too short. Now, think of a paragraph as a segment in a discussion. You know, if you think about a TV debate that is going on, it doesn't go on for 3 hours nonstop. You know, it can go on for 10 minutes and they take a commercial break for people to take a cup of tea or to breathe, make use of the restroom, just for a breather. Then we pick up on what we would have talked about. So sometimes, you know, we see a paragraph that's very lengthy, and it's a problem because I need to be able to read an idea and I stop a little bit. It gives me a break, and then you pick up on it again later. But if you keep on going nonstop, it becomes too much, okay? But also a paragraph mustn't be too short. And by too short, I mean any sentence, any paragraph that has less than 3 sentences is a problem. In academic writing, it has to have more than 3 sentences, 4, 5, 6, 7, well crafted sentences that speak to each other. And you will see why I'm saying that a paragraph cannot have less than 3 sentences shortly. Purpose of each paragraph, I have already touched on this. So A, is it developing a new idea? B, is it expanding on an idea that has been mentioned already? Or is it offering a contrasting view on an idea that has been mentioned? So you do these kinds of things in a paragraph. Now, as you are writing, you are an artist. You are crafting this particular story that you are telling. You make the decision on what has to come here, what has to come second, but it has to make sense to you for it to make sense, and hopefully it will make sense to the reader as well. But if it's jumbled up and it's not making sense to you, it will be very hard for someone else who did not write this to get a sense of what you are talking about. All right. Now, let me now get to the structure itself of a paragraph. Now, when it comes to the structure itself, there is this approach called the point, evidence, and explanation approach to paragraph development. Point, evidence, and explanation. So if you don't get anything from me today, I think it's important for you to get a sense of this. The point, evidence, explanation. It's quite key when you are writing your paragraphs. And now going forward, I'll be talking about this structure. So what you will notice is that a paragraph it's almost like an essay of sorts. And what I mean by that is, we spoke earlier about an academic text having an introduction, the body or the main text, and a conclusion. Now, a paragraph almost has something of that nature. And if you look here, it says here an introductory sentence. So often a paragraph has an introduction of some sort, and then the body, and then a conclusion. And I will touch on this. So often you have an introductory sentence. This is sometimes called a topic sentence. A topic sentence tells the reader the purpose of your paragraph. It captures the main idea or the main point you are developing. It's quite important to think about this. So there's an introductory, which captures the point, then you have evidence, you have evaluation or evaluative sentence or explanation, then a concluding sentence is sometimes brought in here. But I will touch on this bit by bit. So let's talk about an introductory sentence. So a paragraph has one main point. I've already talked about the point, evidence, and explanation approach. So each paragraph that you are going to write in your proposal, that you're going to write in your dissertation or in your thesis, must be able to carry one central point, one main point. And so the first sentence that you often write is called a topic sentence, which captures this main point of this paragraph. In other words, it tells the reader the purpose of your paragraphs. It introduces the main idea you are developing or expanding upon or contrasting with. And this is quite key for you to understand that so sometimes, when people come to us, with their work, we see that you have done a lot of research, but as we are reading, we can't quite tell the main point you are presenting in that paragraph. So there has to be a clear point. And so way back when people used to print their work, I used to ask people, students, and say, I want you to go through this essay or this proposal or this thesis, and I would give them maybe 1 page of it or 2 pages, and I'll say, I want you to read a paragraph and write down in a word or two the main point you're writing about in that paragraph. It's quite an interesting exercise. You may want to do that as well, because sometimes you know it yourself, but you haven't put it in such a way that the person who is reading it for the first time can identify with, can understand, can see very clearly that this is what is being talked about. So that's quite important. And later I'll show you an example of how to do this as well. So you have now the point that you are making or the claim that you are making around housing or around whatever issue that you are writing about. But for us to believe what you are saying, for us to see what you are saying and understand what you are saying, you need to provide evidence. So I said you have a topic sentence. Often, I'm saying often because sometimes, as you begin to grow in your writing, you may put the topic sentence somewhere, in the middle of the paragraph or somewhere there, but it should be extremely good for you to be able to do that and for the reader to follow and still see where you are taking them, because again, it's a journey that you are taking someone. And so often it's better to start with the topic sentence. That's why some people can just skim a particular document, because they just look at the introduction, they look at each paragraph, look at the topic sentence, they look at the concluding sentence, and begin. If it's well written, we get a sense of what you're writing about in that paragraph already. So you need to provide evidence. And so you get evidence from research, from reading, from books, from articles, you get evidence. Now, often I give this example and say that if, for example, you were supposed to submit your proposal to your supervisor on the 7th of August, and for one reason or the other, you fail to do so, and you're about to submit now on the 15th of August, and your supervisor has said, well, I can't take this because you did not submit on the day we had agreed. You come up with a number of reasons, right? So think about those reasons as your points. So number one, maybe you were not feeling well. That's one point. Number two, there was load shedding and a fault, an electrical fault in your area. And so you couldn't charge your computer, maybe you even use a desktop and so all that. So you have a number of points. One is not feeling well. Two is technical challenges that you had. And then maybe 3 and 4 and 5. Now, in a paragraph, you only talk about one main point, which is now that you were not feeling well. So that's the point you are making, that you were not able to submit on the 7th of August because you were not feeling well. And so in a paragraph, we can't talk about you're not feeling well, and also you were not, there was load shedding and you couldn't. And now, in terms of the logical flow of ideas, it becomes a bit challenging. You can do that in the introduction when you're introducing what happened, but we now come to the paragraphs. You now need to address one thing at a time. So the main point this time around is that you were not feeling well. So when you say you're not feeling well, it doesn't mean that your supervisor will now say, oh, okay, you're not feeling well, so now submit now on the 15th. No, they want to know more. So they will say, okay, you're not feeling well, tell me more, for me to get more information on this, for me to believe you perhaps, for me to see why you were not able to submit. So that's where you need to bring evidence and reason, you see, in that, in this particular paragraph. And so you get that from books, articles. In this case, for example, if you say you are not feeling well, you need to produce a doctor's report. If you even have photos of when you were in hospital and that you were, admitted there, and, you had an injury and your hands, were bandaged, it was impossible for you to type or whatever, you then provide all that evidence. Why? Because you want the person to see why you are saying what you are saying. So it's important for you to introduce this evidence clearly and remember to provide, the source where you are getting this information from, for people to begin to make sense of that evidence. So it's not enough to just say you're not feeling well and you don't provide evidence. You do need to provide evidence, and you get it from recent books, articles, and in some cases, even seminar text from a long time ago. Now, often we don't struggle to find evidence. We often have a lot of evidence, but what we often don't have is this other section, this other part. Remember I said point, evidence, and explanation. This part here, where you're providing an explanatory or an evaluative sentence or sentences, is often something that we lack in our writing. So we often lack two things: the topic sentence, which introduces the main point, and we often lack the explanation. And by explanation, if you have provided evidence, you've provided a doctor's note that you were sick, and you've shown me photos that you were in hospital, but you now need to explain. In other words, you need to make sense of it to me, the person, or to your supervisor. In other words, you answer the so what question. You were in hospital, so what? There were other people who were in hospital, but they managed to submit on the 7th. You now need to make sense of the evidence in relation to the point you're making. The point is you were not able to submit because you were not feeling well. Okay, you've shown me photos, you've shown the doctor's note. Okay, but the explanation part, you now say, given that I was in hospital and the doctor gave me tablets that made me dizzy and asked me to rest, it made it impossible for me to concentrate and to write the assignment and submit on time. Do you see now I'm tying back to the point I was making there? So some people make this mistake. They say 60% of UJ students, whatever. Okay, interesting statistic, but so what? So when you are talking about explanation, you are answering the so what question. Why did you tell me this? It's like this. Another example before I move on. If I were to show you a photo of a lady, your question would be, who is this? Is this your mom, your sister, your wife, your daughter? And why are you showing us this anyway? But if I were to say, I look like my sister, I'm talking about resemblance. That's the point I'm making. But then, you may say, well, I don't believe you. There's no way, you would look like your sister. Then I say, oh, by the way, I have a photo. I want you to see the photo. Then I show you the photo. Now, the photo is part of the evidence, to what I'm talking about. So I provide you evidence. But, you may look at the photo and you say, okay, I'm seeing the photo, but I don't see what you're talking about. I don't see the resemblance. I don't see the similarity. So I do need to then break it down for you so that you see what I'm seeing and why I'm making the claim I'm making that I look like my sister. So I say, have a look at that nose. It looks, it's rounded and as big as mine. Look at the forehead, and then maybe you can say, okay, I kind of see what you are saying. So When you are writing as well, it's almost the same thing. Now, I'm giving very silly examples, but they're there to make you see what we all do, by the way. If you are late in terms of submitting your document, you provide a number of reasons. Sometimes even some of the reasons will not be true. I'm not encouraging you to do so, but we sometimes do that, but we back it up, providing evidence and explaining so that the person can see what we are talking about. And then, of course, sometimes you have what is called a concluding sentence. And in a concluding sentence, you are trying to draw everything to a close. But sometimes you do that in the explanation itself. But also, I must say that sometimes in a paragraph, when you're concluding it, you sometimes you put in what is a glimpse to what you are about to write about in the next paragraph. You see, when you do so, then it now talks about how different paragraphs speak to each other. That's why I'm saying it can be a concluding sentence, or it can be a concluding sentence, but that gives a glimpse into the next paragraph. And I would want to encourage you to say that when you are reading, as you read quite a lot, if you come across a well-written article, save it somewhere, see how they move from one point to the other, how they move from one section to another. Yesterday, I was reviewing an article submitted to one journal, and they asked me to review that article. This person, told the story well, but you couldn't quite see how they moved from one section to another. So, it was just disjointed. There wasn't a clear flow, like connection between this to that. And so I made, that kind of recommendation. So you really need to, take the reader on this journey, and they must be able to see the moves you are making, how you are turning, why you are turning there, all that. Otherwise, it just becomes too much. And I see these as interesting issues, but they are not flowing. They're not flowing into each other. There isn't a logical flow of ideas. So sometimes a concluding sentence does that. Or sometimes in the next topic sentence, you tie back to what you talked about in the previous paragraph, which then leads to this particular paragraph. It's easier to see it when you have a number of articles, then you see how people move and transition from this to the next. It's like, when someone is presenting and they're talking with you, and then, they say, you're such a nice person, you have really done a lot for me. And then someone says, okay, I sense a but coming, like, but then the person often says, but, I don't think this, whatever, because they have spoken in a way that you can see where they are going. So in real life, we surprise people, there's a birthday, you want to surprise someone, or some people don't like surprises, but some do like surprises. So in real life, sometimes we surprise people. In academia, we don't surprise people. We tell them in the introduction what we plan to do, and then we carry it out in the paragraphs. So we should be able to see the different moves you are making, because there shouldn't be any room for surprises. We must begin to see how you are transitioning. Now, any questions? I've been talking for a long time. Any questions? Are there any questions um, in the chat there? I guess not. Now, I want to show you something here um, as an example to show you what I was talking about around paragraph development. So I need to stop sharing and take you to the other blog that I have open here. Then you can see what I'm talking about. I wonder whether you can see the blog I'm sharing now. Thumbs up or yes will do. All right, good. Is that a hand or a thumbs? Okay, all right, yes, thank you. Right. This one talks about writing a literature review in your own voice. But now I'm not talking about literature reviews today. I'm just using this blog to show you how to write, how to present a topic sentence, and how to provide evidence, and how to provide concluding sentence or explanatory sentence. This was written by my former coordinator, where I used to work. So this is an example. Look at this example, kindly learned from a student's early draft of a proposal. So this is an example from a proposal from a student. So this is what they wrote. The goal of ODL is to widen participation and to overcome geographical, social, and economic barriers to education. And this is coming from Kelly and Mills, and they kept on writing, and you can see they've done a lot of reading. You can see throughout there are these, they show that they've done a lot of reading. So the reading part would be more what? The point or the evidence or the explanation. Well, this is part of the evidence part, to support the claim you are making. So what is not here? So what is good about this paragraph, though, is that the student put the source towards the end of the paragraph, or sorry, of the sentence. It's even better sometimes right here. So they didn't start with Kelly and Mills. I argue that they go off whatever rather they put this. Still, this is supposed to be a topic sentence, but it's coming from someone. So already, you see, what Sharon Clarence, who wrote this blog, is talking about here is writing a literature review in your own voice. And often what happens also as you write your proposal is that your voice sometimes becomes missing or very faint, and it's difficult for us to tell what you are saying. Because if you look at this paragraph, we now know what Kelly and Mills say, because this is from Kelly and Mills. Then the next, this is from Rambo. The next from Daniel. The next from this. The next from this. But we don't know what the student is saying or the scholar is saying about all this. What is the claim they're making? How do they relate to what these other scholars have said? So I'm discouraging you from writing like this. It's okay to have this as a first draft. But in the second draft and in the third draft or in the final draft that you send to your supervisor, you make it hard for them to see where you are. It's as if you are a follower of what is being written. And yet you are the one presenting the ideas here. So it's quite important for you to know where you stand. And so what Sharon Clarence did to this paragraph that was sent to her is that by the way, there's one other thing that I didn't comment here, which is done well, is that often they are paraphrasing. They still show where the information is coming from, but they are paraphrasing. It's a problem when every sentence is a direct quotation from someone, but you see here they've done this well. The only issue I have with them is that it's not quite clear what they are saying in their own words here. So they start the paragraph using someone's ideas. Throughout, they're using someone's ideas. They end the paragraph using someone's ideas. So what Sharon Clarence did is that she took the same paragraph, which starts from here and ending somewhere here. So what she did was she put a topic sentence. Online and distance learning, in brackets ODL, faces several key student-related challenges in addressing its central goal. So now we know what this paragraph is all about. It's about the several challenges that online and distance learning faces. Then so you have made that claim. Now throughout you are showing now why you are saying what you are saying, providing reasons, examples, evidence. You are doing that here in the body. So to go back to my example earlier, I said you have an introduction. So this is almost an introduction. It's a topic sentence capturing now what the main point is about of this paragraph. Then you bring in these scholars to the discussion. But then you don't end with this Seward guy, 1993. Rather, you come back. In fact, Sharon removed Seward and only presented Tinto. I think Tinto is somewhere here, so it ended here. Then, after that, you now see that there is what is now called explanation. They are now making sense of the evidence provided in relation to the point here that was presented here. So they say what all of this means for all DO institutions is that increasing student retention, whatever. In other words, you're answering the so what. Why did you tell me about what Tinto, Makina, Daniel, and all these people say? So what? Okay, then there's the reason here. These authors, however, seem to be pointing to a need to whatever. What you begin to see here is that they are now, or Sharon is now presenting something here which will be picked up again in the next paragraph. But it's related to this, but she can now expand on this in the other paragraph that is now about to be presented. So the difference between this paragraph and this paragraph is that in this paragraph here, the orange part is coming from the student. So we know what the student is saying. They've now used other people's work, but they are there to present what they want to talk about. And then it's like, I think I made an example of this yesterday and I'm about to finish, by the way. I'm left with one slide, so don't worry. Well, it's like if you invite people, and Sharon uses that example, if you invite people to a dinner table, and I don't often use that example, I use a TV show that if, for example, someone is, if we know in South Africa, for example, Sakina Kamwendo, she reads the news and sometimes invites people to talk about a particular issue. She's talking about load shedding in South Africa. She can't allow the people that have been invited to have the first word. Then all of a sudden, we are seeing someone on TV and saying something about load shedding. We don't know that person, and we are wondering, why is this person speaking? So if, for example, Sakina Kamwendo, who is the host of a particular TV show, has decided to bring in leaders of political parties, say President Ramaphosa, President John Steinhaus, and President Jacob Zuma, President Julius Malema, the four main parties now in parliament. Now, President Ramaphosa is powerful, but this is not his talk show. The talk show belongs to Sakina Kamwendo. So Sakina has to introduce the idea of this segment. So this is the introduction I'm talking about. If all of a sudden you see President Ramaphosa talking, you're wondering what is going on. Is this a family meeting going on now? Is there some emergency, whatever? What's going on exactly? What you will see is that often, even before he comes and addresses, you will hear that at this particular time, there's going to be a presentation from the president on 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to do that as well. You are the host of this proposal. You are the person we know. So it's important for you as you are writing that you introduce. I saw a comment there that I think it's a good example. Thank you for that feedback. So what you then do is that Sakina will say, load shedding continues to be a key problem in South Africa. It's affecting business, affecting students, affecting leisure as well, tourism and all that. So today I've invited leaders of four main political parties to talk about why we still have load shedding, what they are doing to end load shedding, and when we are likely to see the end to load shedding. So she has introduced in her own words. After that, she allows President Ramaphosa to speak. She allows Steinhaus to speak. She allows Zuma to speak. She allows Malema to speak. But she doesn't end with Malema here. And then that's all. Then next we are talking about something else because we wonder, we just hear, well, it's because of corruption, mismanagement, and all that. That's Malema saying that. Then next we hear, well, there were protests in Kenya, and we're wondering, how did we move from load shedding to protest in Kenya? You, as the author, you have the duty to transition us from load shedding to the protest in Kenya. Or if it's weather, you have the duty to transition us from load shedding to the weather issues. So you then come here and you say, clearly, all the four of you agree that load shedding is a problem and is affecting South Africa. However, it's clear also that you do not agree on how to end load shedding. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but we now need to turn to the weather. Then someone comes in and says, there were floods in whatever. Oh, now we need to turn to other world news. Then you hear there are protests that are going on. Do you see how in one paragraph I started the discussion? I allowed scholars or authorities to speak, but I came back later to wrap up this whole thing. So your voice has to be clear throughout the presentation. All right, any questions on this? Is this clear to you? I saw a comment there, but I can't read it right now because I'm sharing something. So, all right, okay, I see a thumbs up. Okay, none, but the example is brilliant. Okay, thank you. I'm guessing our moderator will talk about these elements as well later. Now, I now need to turn, so someone said here, a great example of paragraph development. I personally struggle with a topic statement and conclusion. All right, thank you. And also, by the way, we have, we have this booking slot, and and I think it was mentioned earlier, so we can spend 1 hour together online or in person at the postgraduate school where I am right now, actually. And so we can talk about, your own work. We look at your own work and talk about how you can maybe try to develop that particular your paragraph development, your storytelling. I see someone saying, please share the link to the article. You will see it in there, but I'll paste the link here as well very shortly. In the meantime, I just want to go back to my presentation, and I now turn to the last part. I just wanted to give you. Oh, by the way, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can, Dr. King.
Okay, this is the last slide. All right, thank you. So now I just wanted to give you an exercise, and I know we don't have time to do it right now, but I want you to do it in your own time. So I want you to write a paragraph where you detail one of the reasons necessary for crafting a clear research proposal. And I came up with this question. I'm thinking about the proposal that you are doing right now. So there are a number of reasons why we need a proposal. We talked about some of these yesterday. There are a number of reasons why we require a proposal. But what I want you to do is to take one of those reasons and develop a paragraph focusing on that one reason. Now, I also say here that assume you have an introduction already, or you may want to write a short introduction. Then for the purposes for the purpose of this exercise, I say, please do not do it anywhere else. Just to come up with your own hypothetical evidence, statistics, examples, and authors. I often do this when I'm presenting in class or with people right there, and I give them about 5-10 minutes to write, and then I go around and see how they would have done it, whether they have a point, a clear point, so that I see the reason they are talking about, and then whether they have evidence and reason to back up what they are saying. Why should we believe what you are saying? By the way, people do not have to agree with you, but they at least have to see where you are basing your claims or the claim that you are making. And then finally, do you answer the so what question? Why are you telling us about this? Do you provide a concluding sentence which ties up everything, or more of an intro, kind of a glimpse into the next paragraph? Now, when you do have a succession of these different paragraphs that are well thought, it makes for an interesting read. And I do know that writing is a process. It's difficult, it's hard, but it's something that can be done. The more you do it, the more you become better at it. That concludes my presentation. Any questions and contributions that you may have, please feel free to tell me now. I'll just put this one down for now while I give over time to you to ask any questions or make any contribution, but I just want to paste the link into the chat there. But it's there in the document itself where I say example. But I'll stop sharing now so that if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you. So if you have any questions, any additions, subtractions, or anything that you want to voice, you're welcome to do so. All right, someone is saying that they will make an appointment. By the way, if you go into this link, you will see, for those of you who attended yesterday, when I talked about a laundry list when it comes to a literature review, you will see the link to that in this document as well. And so there are 3 people that I would really advise you to check. That's Sharon Clarence. She writes about a PhD in 100 ways or 100 steps. So you can subscribe for free, and then, whenever she posts something there, okay, just to visit a website. Then there's another person, Professor Pat Thompson, very well-rounded individual, writes on aspects of writing, PhD, masters, research, and a link is there as well in that document. Once you click there, it will take you there, and you can go to the. Then there's also Professor Inga Melbourne. These 3 ladies are extremely helpful in terms of academic writing, and I've used them a lot, and I still use their work a lot. Any questions before we call it a day? There we talked about the topic, coming to settle on a particular topic, and then how you then develop your research questions. And then finally, we talked about paragraph development, and we said you are telling a story, and the story has to be clear to the audience that you are writing to. And so it's important for you to lead the discussion and then allow scholars to come in and make a contribution. You come back and you tie up everything. By and large, that's what you do. Okay, so I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Good day, Prof, and everyone.
Yes.
On the section where you spoke about the main research question and sub-questions, so I just wanted clarity in terms of where you mentioned the what, the how, and the why. Does that goes under both, or is it the sub-questions?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. That goes under the research questions. And I'm saying that your questions might be more of what is whatever, where is it again? There. I'm saying some of the questions might be asking the what question, some are more the how issues, some are more the why. Often the main research question might be just one question. It's like the aim is just one, but then you have the objectives. And under these objectives or the sub-research questions, or it might be whatever question or how questions that you ask, because the research questions will be a number of them. In answering these research questions, you also answer the main. The main one is a bit broad. These ones are more pointed. And once you answer these, they help you to answer the main research question, or if these were objectives. Once you answer the objectives, they should be able to help you answer the aim, because you develop your objectives from the aim. What is the overall aim of this dissertation? And then how do I put it in such a way that it's manageable, different aspects that I want to look at. And so this can be the what, how, why, if it's a sub-research question. But these won't all be under the main research question. The main research question often is one. And then under that, you have, again, this is dependent on the kind of research you are doing. And I think you will touch on some elements of this tomorrow when you deal with the research methodology, because the kinds of questions you have there are also dependent on the kind of study you are doing. Is it more an exploratory study, an explanatory, or whatever? Those kinds of issues determine the kinds of questions that you also ask. Okay, so have I answered you in some way?
Yes, you have, Doc. I guess we'll explore further tomorrow on the next session.
I hope so. I'm not the one presenting. There is Professor Dutoit. I think he will competently answer all those questions as well. I really encourage you to attend tomorrow's session.
Okay, definitely. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. I see someone else is typing. Thank you, Oketo, for asking. It helps to ask. Then I know what you want me to rehash or emphasize. All right. I see someone is typing. All right, wait for you to finish typing. Good day. Someone says, good day. Can I find out when do we get the videos for these sessions? All right. The moderator will be able to answer that question. Koketso, are you there? Please feel free to answer that question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kenny. All the videos will be uploaded. Actually, today we're in the process of uploading all of the videos from the previous workshops, so they should be available by the end of today on our module community. So please check them out at the end of today.
Awesome. So you have access to all of them. And just to check, it's quite a comprehensive program that has been put up. So please try to go through. And sometimes, as you see now, sometimes the speakers will be building on what has been discussed. So try to also go, but each one can also be a standalone somehow, but try to go back and download and save them somewhere. So that someday when you want to go through, you can do so. But also, it's important just to feed yourself with these. I do that a lot as well. I sometimes go and read something that I know because I often learn from that, or it refreshes my memory, or I see something in a different way that I never saw it that way, or there's an example that's provided that's more striking to me or that resonates with me. So even if you know these things, it's important for you to be reminded of these kinds of things. All right. Any other last questions and comments before I hand over to our moderator, Koketsu? Going once and going twice. I feel like it's an auction now. All right. I don't see any questions, but I'll be still in the room as I hand over now back to our moderator. And thank you very much, Koketsu, for that moderation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kenny, for such an insightful presentation. I think we all learned so much from this presentation. And I see on the comments that everyone is acknowledging that it was a good paragraph that you shared there, and I think everyone is happy with the presentation. And Gokez is also saying that he or she will definitely book an appointment with you. So we thank you so much for that presentation. Are there any final questions to Dr. Kenny before we officially close the session? And may I please also remind you to complete our survey form. It's on the chat, and I'll just post it again for the last time so that everyone can complete the survey out. We go on the chat, and I see also some comments are coming in now. Thank you for the insightful session. And yes, thank you so much, Dr. Kenny. Any other questions before we close? Okay, looks like everyone is happy. So I would also take this opportunity to thank our attendees for taking your time and attending the session. So we really appreciate you supporting the RCD, and also we hope that you benefit so much from the sessions that we give you. And thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much, Dr. Kenny, again for your presentation. And we can call it a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye.